Welcome back to another Sex and the City deep dive. Is Miranda Hobbes the original girl boss, or was she in fact a deeply tragic and underutilized character? Yes, you heard it right. Today we are diving into my favorite character in Sex and the City, what happened to her, why she was done dirty, and why she's seriously misunderstood. I'm on Sex and the City season 4 currently, and it's really funny because a lot of people have been commenting on my recent Sex and the City videos saying, God, for someone that seems to hate Sex and the City so much, you sure do seem to talk about it a lot. And it's really funny because I actually now love this show. It's literally one of my favorites. I think it's so funny, witty, honestly, like insanely addictive, truly captivating. I've been watching it every night. I genuinely cannot take my eyes off it. But I didn't feel that way at first because it took me a little while through the first half of season 1 to really find a character to identify with. I felt like I wasn't really connecting with any of the girls and it was quite slow paced. It made it hard for me to really get it. And then halfway through season 1, I really started to enjoy it as the show picked up pace. And part of the reason as to why that happened is because I noticed I was developing a really strong attachment to Miranda, which really surprised me because I love Carrie's fashion so much. I love Samantha's attitude. I love Charlotte's grace and optimism. And yet at the end of the day, it was Miranda by far who really smashed it out of the ball game for me. And ultimately she was the character that I fell in love with. But unfortunately, as the show progressed, I noticed that this character who I had grown to love and care for so deeply and who I believed really deserved the best things in the world, and to me who seemed like a really caring partner and caring friend overall, and honestly like a good person at heart, was being done dirty. So today we are here to give Miranda her flowers, because there were so many ways where I felt like the writers were not as bad as Samantha, but where the writers were out to get her a little bit. They were trying to dull her down. They were trying to dim her shine, and not today. We are absolutely not having that on this channel. And unfortunately, something I noticed is in season 1, Miranda starts off as very clear in her ways, clear on who she is. Yes, sometimes, okay, her boundaries are a bit harsh, but she seems very clear on what she's offering as a woman. And yes, she's a bit of a negative person, but she still is very clear in her values. And that's why, unfortunately, this character breaks my heart, because as the show developed, we came into season 4, we came into season 5, and then obviously the reboot where she's just a disaster. I realized that every season she's still like an amazing character, but she's gradually getting more and more worn down, losing a sense of direction, gradually having her identity chipped away, and really losing confidence in herself. And the main mistake that she makes is by picking the wrong guy, aka Steve. And the minute that she met him in season 2, I swear her character in terms of like her general like confidence and self-esteem takes such a massive nosedive. He was so bad for her. He made her question herself so much. And yes, she was always a little insecure, but it's kind of what made her cute and endearing and human, right? But Steve just drags her down such a notch. But it felt like the writers had this kind of agenda where they were determined to ruin her, and all these qualities that make her great, that make her amazing, that make me love her, like her having a great career, being a partner at a law firm, being self-sufficient, having her own money, being strong-minded, being opinionated, being a bit cynical, were all used to in some way be turned against her and make her question herself and if she was in the wrong. And I just could not stand it. So let's get into season 1 and 2.
Sweetheart, you should have said that. You are so cute.
Cute doesn't cut it in this town. What's cute compared to supermodel?
So everyone thinks Miranda is negative. That's the common consensus we get about this character, is that she's not pleasant because she thinks the worst of everything. She assumes the worst of everyone. and she's naturally got a more depressing take on life, or she's overly harsh, you know, she needs to lighten up more. And it's funny because I never viewed Miranda from that light. Like, yes, she can be a little bit grumpy sometimes, but overall I felt like she had the most grounded take on season 1 on relationships and dating than the other girls had. She had a little grain of salt that, to be honest, felt a little bit more grounded in reality and what was actually happening compared to the other girls like Charlotte and Carrie. And I feel like those girls really needed her there to ground them with a bit of the cold, hard truth. And that's the thing about Miranda, is she's not afraid to give genuine, honest feedback if she feels like a person needs it, if she feels like they're maybe misguided, or if they're not listening to feedback that they really should be listening to. She's not afraid to give some genuinely harsh advice, but with tough love. And a lot of people think that she's in the wrong for doing this, but I just think that if she's got concerns for her friend, she will say as much. And from what we can see, Miranda, out of all the girls, seems to have the most bad dates. Like, she really seems to struggle to have a guy that she connects with who likes her, and she just has this string throughout the show, not even just in season 1 and 2, of just really bad dates where she's trying really hard. She's always complaining about being single and coming home to an empty apartment and feeling low and feeling depressed. And she's often saying things like, okay, there's just no good men in New York anymore. Like, where do I find them? And it makes it worse that she's in an office and in an environment where it's very, very competitive. And we see that this is where Miranda's not just the girl boss character in like a nice inspiring way, because it's something where anytime she achieves something really great, like she makes it to be partner of a law firm, or she gets invited to a cool office party, it's always overshadowed by the fact that she's single. Like, rather than celebrating the accomplishment of what she's just achieved, the writers somehow turn it into some kind of pointed discussion about how she's single, or how she doesn't have a +1 or a date for the event. And she ends up feeling bad and talking about that rather than being praised for this amazing thing that she's just achieved. And it makes me so sad, because Miranda is so talented. She has the capacity to be someone like Samantha, who is really self-sufficient and really knows who she is and is really confident. But somehow with Miranda, she's always the one that ends up questioning if she's worthy or if she's good enough. And I think that's part of where this kind of complaining comes from.
I thought we had a connection.
Oh, I don't know. Could I get my change?
In season 2, Miranda really worries suddenly about getting older and dying without having a man in her life, like the tenant who lived in the apartment before her. And she's also really embarrassed because she goes to this work party and everyone's now convinced that she's a lesbian. And so she decides to play along with the lie to get people to like her. She also gives really good advice to her friends a lot of the time. Like, Carrie was stewing about Big so much in season 2 and the way that he didn't love her back. And Miranda says, cut your losses and get back in the game. And I love that for her. She's very pragmatic and she has this very practical approach to relationships and dating that I honestly find aspirational, where for the most part, she tends to not ruminate on things too much. Like, she tries not to sit and complain and whinge for long periods if she senses that something isn't going to work out. And most of the time, from what I can see, she's not someone that tends to dwell in it, or at least dump it on her friends, unless it's something really bad. And she actually notices that she's sick of how all the other girls are talking about boyfriends all the time. She actually gets up from the table and says, guys, until we want to have a serious conversation about actual things, I don't want to hang out with you guys anymore, because it feels like anytime we're together, we're talking about drama or boyfriends or Big. And how is it that 4 such successful women only have boyfriends to talk about? This reminds me again about why she's such a tragic character, because she can say something like this in season 2 and genuinely seem to believe it and believe it to be true of herself, that dating isn't the main priority. And yet her actions reflect otherwise as the show continues, because she's stuck in these deadbeat relationships with these loser guys. I'm talking specifically about Steve here, who offer no value to her life. And as she gets more involved with him and kind of combines her life with him, especially when it comes to moving in together or starting a family, we see her become more and more angry, more and more depleted, completely unappreciated, and completely burnt out, doing all the domestic and emotional labor in the relationship. And we see her facing this constant pressure at work where it's like they expect her to be dating, they expect her to have a life and not just to be a single lawyer. But then if she's having problems with the kids or something and she comes into work late because she's been taking care of the kids and she's running late, then she's judged for it. And as the show progresses, suddenly everything becomes about Steve. Steve wants to move to Brooklyn, and then she has to move to Brooklyn. Like, and especially even in season 2, we start seeing this happening where she has a bad date and she starts to gaslight herself that maybe it's not that bad. She tries to convince herself that maybe she was the one in the wrong. And even when something goes badly with Steve, like where she, let's say, really needs to get her sleep in, she again gaslights herself into thinking he's being sweet when he's actually being emotionally manipulative, or it's fine, I'm in the wrong because it's totally fair enough he'd want to come around at 3 a.m. It's fine if I get no sleep. It's fine if I miss out on my important schedule and my washing day because he wants to cuddle in bed. She's always making allowances and compensations for other people, and they're not doing the same for her. And honestly, it makes me sick. It makes me sick because, ladies, it's not just because of the show, okay? Like, I'm not crazy. I know it's just a show, but it's the fact that I know people in real life genuinely do this, and they see the Mirandas and Steves of the world and they think this is normal. They think their life needs to be like this, and it's normal for a guy to be making all these demands, never apologizing, and you're the one that has to be like, I'm sorry, I was too harsh, like, forget my work, it's not important, I'll just minimize my own interests then to make you more comfortable and cater to your ego. And that's exactly what Miranda is doing in this relationship with Steve. And as it continues, we see that she is gradually losing herself and kind of molding her schedule to his schedule. And she's really easily swayed by what he says to her. Like, he starts to make her question herself and her femininity when she doesn't want him to move in with her, or she doesn't want him doing whatever and staying over, or she doesn't want to have kids, or any kind of boundary where she says no to something. He's like, oh, well, you're basically the guy in the relationship, I'm the emotional one. Oh, why do you have to behave like such a guy? And it really gets to her. It makes her start questioning if she's actually like feminine, if she can be loved, if there's something maybe wrong with her, like if there's something she's not aware of, and if maybe she's actually the problem.
You see, this is why I don't date. The men out there are freaks.
I really feel like the writers wanted to make her an insecure character and not have her truly shine and be comfortable in herself and be comfortable in her singleness, because seasons pass and there's never a point where it seems to click that this is weird and this is not how it should be. It just drags on this sort of self-victimizing, depressed, I'm not whole, I'm not complete, I'm a loser because I don't have a man mindset. Even when her and Carrie in later seasons, like season 3, go to this party, Carrie thinks that they're jealous, all these women who are married. They're all jealous and they all want to be them and they all wish they were single again. And Miranda was like, no, they're uncomfortable because they don't want to be us and they don't like understand us. They were judging us. And she's very like uncomfortable being around groups of married women because, again, it makes her feel like perhaps she's missing out on something. And she even feels uncomfortable when her friends seem to be really thinking their relationships are going well, because a lot of the time Miranda has a more cynical take on it, like with Carrie and Big, for example, or like with Charlotte and Trey. Miranda's normally the one to be, again, very pragmatic and be like, well, you don't know this person, like you don't know their intentions, and you shouldn't be idealizing them. And it's funny because she says this stuff to them that's often quite good advice, but then when it comes to her own stuff, like her own relationship with this loser who has nothing to offer her, who makes significantly less than her, she always ends up minimizing it and allowing him to walk all over her and to treat her badly. And it just makes no sense because she could have anyone, and yet she thinks that she has to pick someone like Steve. And there's always a more focus on the single feminism debate with Miranda than the other women. Like when Samantha buys her own property, it's not a big deal. But when Miranda buys property, it's suddenly turned into this awkward thing around, oh, how could someone of your age be buying property? And are you together with someone, or is your dad buying it for you? And she's like, no, I'm buying it for myself with my own money. And there's also a recurring theme, not just in season 2, but in general, even in season 3 and 4, it comes up again of her feeling ashamed to have her job, of it actually deterring the number of successful men that she meets who like her back, and the number of successful dates that she has. Like there's a whole episode in this speed dating episode where she lies and maintains this lie and plays a little character pretending to be a flight attendant, because she realizes she gets way more hits and way more dates when she acts out that she's a flight attendant compared to when she says that she's a partner at a law firm. So even from that perspective, the show paints it as actually a deterrent to her meeting the one, the fact that she's so successful, because men are intimidated and deeply emasculated by it. And this is just a genuinely really sexist and inaccurate portrayal, because there's a lot of men that will love that you're successful. So it's not true for every guy. Like a lot of men will like that, and you'll meet guys like on your level, right? But even in season 2, when she goes to buy a suit for Steve, it's made into this whole thing that it's embarrassing and he should be able to buy his own suit. He never lets her really spend money on him unless they're friends. He finds it like humiliating. It makes him feel like he's not good enough, and it's somehow made into her problem that he feels not good enough. And this is something that really bothers me, is because a lot of the men in the show do make some kind of change, aside from Big, to compensate, to make a compromise, to choose the woman they love, and to change because they love her. Because when you really love someone, you do change for them. You figure it out and you do it, because otherwise you're choosing the problem over them, right? But Steve was the one who never got the memo, and it wasn't just in season 2, it was just maintained that Miranda has to be the one to cater to his schedule and change herself for him, but not the other way around. Steve doesn't have to change for Miranda, Miranda has to change for Steve. And if she doesn't, and he gets mad at her, or he yells at her, he speaks to her in a disrespectful way, or he swears at her, that's still her fault, because she just wasn't accommodating enough, right? And anytime she gets angry too, it's like she's a very sensitive person, Miranda, actually underneath. Like she has this tough kind of self-sufficient vibe, but she's actually very like sensitive. She feels things deeply, and she really cares for Steve. So when she expresses something from genuine anger, she means it. Like she's not saying it to be like bitchy, she genuinely means it. But every time she responds from anger to something he's done, he's like, oh, you're so reactive, we can't even have a conversation anymore, I'm gonna go. And he always opts out of the conversation, and it makes her feel even worse and makes her anger feel invalidated on top of that. In season 3, things get even crazier, because Miranda is still in this dating drought in a way, and she's trying to just find someone at this point alive to go out with. Like she has a date scheduled with a guy, they met at Starbucks, they hit it off, she's so excited to go, and it seems like he's cancelled on her. And it turns out he's not a bad guy, he didn't cancel on her, he literally died. And it was hilarious, by the way. But this experience was so disturbing for Miranda that like a 45-year-old could die of a heart attack, that she's like, oh my God, maybe there'll be no alive men left in New York. So her criteria goes from up here to being like, he just needs to be, alive in some capacity. Like he's alive, he asked me out, brilliant. It's so funny. Like I know I shouldn't find it funny, but so many of Miranda's dates just go terribly, and she has all these, just a string of horrendous dates. One guy that wants to lick her butt, oh my God, it's so disgusting. This other guy that just pees with the door open and has zero boundaries. Like there's just date after date of just terrible situations, guys that are intimidated by her career. The main prominent one is Steve, but there's a lot of episodes where she's genuinely just like single and having these horrible encounters. But Miranda really wants to find love. And that's the thing about Miranda a lot of people don't really realize, because they're so focused on her being there for her friends, is that she's really caring and sweet. As I said, she really liked Steve when she met him. He loosened her up a bit. He was playful. He brought out a more fun, relaxed side of her. And she wasn't superficial. Like, she didn't care about his money or the fact he worked in a bar. She just enjoyed spending time with him and having fun and just enjoying his company. Like, she's a very genuine person. She's not surface level at all. But when they get back together, things do get really, really strained between them because he moves in, and again, she's not really ready for it emotionally. Like, she has her own life going on. He's not paying rent and he's being very disruptive. He's playing football and damaging her beautiful wallpaper. Again, when she's trying to work, he's coming in, he's interrupting her. He has zero respect for her work and her schedule. And that's fine because it makes his character interesting. But at no point is he actually held accountable for the fact that she's the main breadwinner, and it is unacceptable to treat her passions and her life's work as something that's so uninteresting and something that's so easily disrespected, right? Because it sends a really bad message. But then he wants to get a baby. She's like, no, I can't. I'm trying to make partner. I'm busy. And they end up getting this dog instead as a kind of middle ground. But even when they get the dog, Steve's making Miranda take care of it. So she's again doing the labor there. And this is the point where she just really freaks out and can't handle it anymore, because not only can he not do his own laundry and he's leaving skid marks in his underwear, but he's also not paying rent. He's leaving a massive mess, and they start to relate to each other almost in this mother-son dynamic, which is really interesting, especially when they're living together, where she's like, Steve, make sure you turn the lights off before you go to bed and put the cereal in the bowl. He's like, okay. Like, and it's a very odd dynamic where I think Miranda maybe is a mother at heart, because she didn't realize how motherly she was coming across in her interactions with Steve. Like, it wasn't sexy at all. And she was talking to her friends about it, because she was like, I don't want to be in this mother role, but because he can't take care of himself and he doesn't understand these basic things, I feel like I'm being forced to like step into this mother role that I really don't want to be in. And it escalates when she's got a massive meeting the next day and this stupid puppy dog wakes them up in the middle of the night because Steve wasn't taking care of it. And Miranda's like, look, Steve, this relationship isn't going to work. Like, we can't even take care of a dog, so how are we going to take care of kids? This is too dysfunctional. We can't resolve anything. Steve's like, okay. So I guess you're giving up on us just like that. So suddenly he's gaslighting her and making it sound like she's the one giving up on them too fast. And by the way, Cynthia's acting in this episode, and every episode by the way, but just in general, she's like the best actress in the show in my opinion, but in this episode was insane, because you can see how genuinely torn up and emotional she is about this. As she says to him, I'm not giving up on us. Like, I have tried, I put in the effort, you can't say that I didn't try, because it's not fair, because I really cared and I really tried, but like, this is just not sustainable for me or for our relationship anymore. So we have to end things. And Steve again takes no accountability in that conversation for how he's driven her literally around the bend. He regularly uses inappropriate language and terms when he speaks to Miranda, saying, you're so fucking annoying, you're so effing this, when he's insulting her. Like, he puts a swear word in there when he's angry, which I just don't think is ever an appropriate way for a gentleman to speak to a lady. Like, it's not gentlemanly. Another big recurring theme in season 3 is Miranda really having enough of Carrie's drama with Big. In season 2, she was already annoyed because Carrie had gone back to Big and kept it a secret from everyone. And when Miranda, found out, she tried to like be graceful and keep it a secret, but she was very much judging it at the same time, and she tries not to judge, but she is. But in season 3, she's just absolutely had enough of Carrie, because Carrie is making so many allowances for Big, even when he's treating her badly. And Carrie and Miranda have always had a really interesting relationship, because like I said, Miranda's not afraid to call things out, and sometimes she does so in a blunt or overly critical way that unintentionally shames the person, like she shouts at them, but it's normally because she's driven to an absolute breaking point and she doesn't feel like she's being heard. Like in season 3, episode 18.
It's a huge mistake. It is not a huge mistake. It's lunch.
Wake up, Carrie. How many more times are you gonna go through this?
I think that maybe her delivery wasn't great, and that's a shame, because delivery is sometimes the most important part, but She was 100% right, and she'd said it a million times in a million different ways, and Carrie hadn't cared to listen because she didn't want advice. She just wanted someone to validate her. But she was like, you know, Carrie, you can't be doing this whole thing with Big again. Like, I don't want to hear about it anymore. If like you go back to him, you go for lunch with him, if he's divorced or not, like, I don't care. We don't want to hear about it anymore. She had been really supportive towards Carrie always. She was even really supportive at Charlotte's wedding when Carrie was crying because Aiden had broken up with her. Miranda's been very, very patient, even though a lot of Carrie's pain was self-inflicted and she was being delusional and actively bringing a lot of this drama upon herself. So to say that Miranda hadn't been compassionate would be completely wrong, because Miranda's always stood by people and she's always been compassionate. And Miranda just basically yells at her and says enough. You know, she said basically every time you go back to Big and you start seeing him again, you turn to this self-pitying, delusional, insecure like victim and this needy, lame person. I don't want to hear about it, because she doesn't like who Carrie becomes when Carrie is with Big, and she thinks Big's bad for her, and Carrie gets very defensive as per usual. But then she brings up Miranda's flaws and she lashes out at her even harder, and she's like, well, Miranda, you're not one to talk because you just cut people out of your life the minute they piss you off, the minute they do anything wrong, they're just out, like with Steve. And it's just so insane to bring Steve into it, or to bring, like, Carrie always does this, and it's just so unfair to blame Miranda for this, because it really gets to her and makes her feel like maybe she's just not a forgiving or a kind person, which is the opposite. Like, even when her and Steve had broken up, she wanted to set him up with a nice apartment and she let him sleep at her place until he'd found a good apartment, even though they were broken up, because she just cares for people. She even loaned Carrie thousands of dollars. Yes, okay, she's a bit uptight, she can be a bit rude or blunt in her delivery, but what she said was still like really worth listening to. And Carrie was actually the one who was turning it into even more of a fight and escalating it. And it's not that Miranda was telling her what to do or saying you can't see him, because she knows Carrie's an adult, but she was more saying when you go see him and it falls apart, because it inevitably will, that's fine, but don't then come to me crying about it when it falls apart. Like, I don't want to hear about it, which I think is totally fair enough. And this was the point when I realized that Miranda was 100% my favorite character, because she says it like it is. She calls out characters like Carrie who need to be called out for their flaws more often and are often praised for kind of doing nothing. And also the actress is really talented, so she nails it in basically whatever scene that she's doing. And she has a very complicated role. Miranda has a lot of different sides. She's not more simple and comedic like Samantha. Miranda's character is very deep and layered, so I think she does a really good job of showing these different sides of Miranda. In season 3, episode 2, Miranda says that she's just not feeling sure about Steve, and she's wondering if there's someone maybe better that she should ditch him for if that guy comes along. And Carrie suggests that she just writes a list of pros and cons, and Miranda's like, okay, and she starts to write a list, obviously with many, many cons in it, like him being very, very not ambitious and very lazy and like all these problems. And then basically, as she's making this list, Steve tells her that he loves her, and she forgets the whole list and throws it out the window, because apparently him saying I love you is what really mattered. I was trying to figure out what was going on, and I realized that Miranda also has massive self-esteem issues, not just around Steve because he wore her down or something, but in general around dating and around her looks. She makes quite a few comments in the show about how she tends to focus on winning men over with her personality, and she never thought of herself as sexy, like cute but not sexy, which is literally insane because she's so beautiful. And then when she's talking with Carrie, she says, I just can't believe that a guy would think that I was sexy. And I was wondering, like, what's going on with that? But she has this thing around being embarrassed and stuff in public too. Like when she gets braces and not Invisalign, she's really embarrassed at how visible it is, and she's on a date and she gets food stuck in her teeth, and she realizes that she doesn't even have the cool braces. She has like the cringy, ugly ones, and she realizes she feels like a kid again. And she often verbally is compared to being she's compared to the other girls as being less beautiful or not as pretty as them. Even in like the movies when she doesn't shave, the girl's like, oh my God, how can you not shave? That's so gross, you know, that's so unwomanly. And there's that episode called The Real Me that I think really contrasted Miranda and Samantha in a really interesting way, because as we know, Samantha always wears sexy clothes and has a constant sensual, ridiculously over the top flirty energy, and nobody ever questions it. She just looks at someone, she's like seductive, which is such a great energy to be able to tap into, and I think we should all be taking notes. Anytime Samantha's in a scene, I'm like, oh, interesting, like I love that. She's like, yeah, what do you want? I'm like, oh my God. So I love, she has this very like sultry, deep voice as well. She says everything like super sexy, and I'm like, what? And she talks so slow and it's so inappropriate, like most professional social events, it's like not appropriate. But thing is, Miranda is a lot of the time the opposite of that, and she doesn't really behave like that. She's more genuine. But I remember she meets this guy at a gym when she's all sweaty, and he asks her out and he says that she's sexy, and she just can't believe that she could be at the gym in sweatpants and that someone would think she's gorgeous and ask her out. So they start going out and he calls her sexy, and every time she's so like embarrassed, you know, and because she can't believe it. Then she starts to build up her confidence because she realizes that he genuinely likes her. So they have this date and she wears one of the nicest outfits she's ever worn, with these earrings, this black dress, she does her hair, and she carries herself nicely, and she tries to kind of lean over and kiss him and seduce him a little bit. And suddenly, which is the most unrealistic part of the show, he gets really uncomfortable and doesn't call her. And later she asks him, like, what happened? I thought things were going well. And he says that she was too full of herself. And the interesting thing is that she's therefore punished, whereas I feel like Samantha would have been praised for having this kind of sexy energy and the guy would have been super into it. So it makes Miranda retreat further into herself and think that maybe that's just not for her. In season 4 again, Miranda just seems so depressed about like being single, and she's emotional for Steve. Like she's genuinely happy when he says he opened his own bar and he named it after his dog, because she's genuinely proud of him, you know. And she also doesn't like it when he moves on, like when he seems to be dating someone else or not be available. She finds that hard, but at the same time she's mentally accepted that they're not going to be together, you know, because they go on a double date with Carrie, Aiden, Steve, and Miranda, and Steve tries to kiss Miranda and Miranda dodges it. So she's at a point where she thinks she wants something better because she wasn't happy with how her relationship with Steve was, but she can't find anyone. And there's this episode where she just goes ordering these chocolate eclairs and all these things and eating to kind of replace the fact that she hates going back to an empty apartment. There's a lot of montages of her just with her cat sitting, and actually the lady at the Chinese place has memorized Miranda's takeaway order, because every night she's ordering the same meal in, and this really scares Miranda because she's like, wait, am I becoming that kind of person that just orders in all the time, and this is my life now? I'm not even going out, I'm not doing anything. So she starts to, I notice in season 4 in a way I don't like, take on a very self-pitying, lonely kind of mindset, as if her life is really bad. And I even see this reflected in her eating habits. Like she starts eating like all the time. She buys a massive cake to eat by herself and bins it and then eats it out of the bin. And she's always eating in scenes with the girls. Like when they're waiting for their lunch, she just starts eating her salad immediately. I mean, obviously it's great to eat, but it almost seems like stress eating, you know? She's eating Oreos in the middle of the night. Then she like hallucinates that her apartment is haunted. Like she's literally going insane. And I noticed that this is reflected, this lack of self-worth, not just in dating, like, oh, she's struggling to find a date and she has some shit dates, but in the way that her friends treat her. Like Carrie starts treating Miranda worse and taking her for granted in season 4 terribly, like in the double date scene. I don't know what the hell happened there, but basically Carrie tells Miranda to leave the date. Like she's like, you can go now, after dragging her out there so she can spend time with Aiden. And Miranda is so forgiving around this. She calls her, hi, what's up? Like she doesn't even seem bothered. She pretends that everything's okay, even though she's clearly really hurt that her friend would not want to spend the rest of the evening with her and would basically force her to leave. So she calls Carrie to ask how her night was going and what was going on with everything, and she doesn't seem upset at all. And they're talking about Aiden, and Carrie's saying, I really want Aiden back actually. I think I'm gonna go over there right now. And then she hangs up on Miranda. And again, she's not held accountable for that. She didn't even say like, bye. And this just reminded me that there is something going on with Miranda's self-concept and her self-esteem. It's not just as simple as the fact that Steve ruined her or something. There is something going on with her, because we see that she lets other people in her life treat her badly, whilst she is just always listening and ever compassionate and always there. And we even see this when she has actually a good date. Like she has a date with a cool doctor in like season 1 or 2, and she sabotages it because she, you know, was looking through his stuff and she found this DVD that she shouldn't have looked at, which was sort of a private kink he had, and she found a way to mess that up by making an insensitive joke, and it was a bit immature. So anytime she does find a guy that could be on her level, that could be perfect for her, she finds a way to tragically mess it up. Like Carrie gets robbed because she goes down a funny street in New York in like season 4, and this gorgeous, handsome detective turns up, exactly Miranda's type to a T. He's just stunning. She thinks they look so good together. He's like, I would love to take you out. He's like obsessed with her. Even Carrie's a bit jealous. And Miranda cannot handle it when they go to the restaurant and she sees that all these men are looking at this guy and checking him out, and she feels really insecure. She's like, oh my God, I'm not good enough for him. He's too good looking for me. She's frazzled. She's not ready for the date. She's disorganized. And she gets so nervous that she makes herself extremely drunk, to the point that he thinks that she's like a recovering alcoholic and they never go out again. She also seems to have this concept that struggle love is good. So the more that you suffer, it means that this makes the relationship healthier. It means that you mean something to that person, so it's good to fight a lot. Like Steve puts her through so much stuff and makes her life really difficult, and Miranda seems to suffer under the misconception that this is part of what makes them good together, is that she gives so much to him and it's okay if he doesn't give much back to her. And I'm not even talking about financially, by the way, before any of you come at me and say, oh, you know, you're like, no, it's not about how much money he has or what his job is. The fact that he's a bartender isn't a problem. It's his attitude and his complete lack of support towards her work and his lack of respect for her career.
It is a big fucking deal.
All right.
She always has to be strong. She always has to hold it together, you know. She can't like be vulnerable, and if she does, she's criticized for it. And she's not as, okay, feminine and fabulous and girly as the other girls in her, let's say, her style of dress and the way that she does her hair and the way that she is very non-male centered with her career, but that's not something she should be punished for or humiliated for, but it's something that's in a way used to degrade her and punish her. And we see things like her deciding to have a baby having far harsher consequences on her life than it does for the other girls. Now, there's a lot of dark comedy when it comes to Miranda, so sometimes it was just played for laughs and it was really funny. And Miranda's also great in those kind of comedic scenes. The actress absolutely nails it. She is so funny. I think her acting is so good that most of the scenes she's in, she just has me laughing so much just with her delivery and her really dry humor. But there's still something to be said around the fact that she suffers far more than someone of her caliber ever needed to. Miranda has a difficult job. She's in a workplace dominated by men. She's not her own boss. She doesn't get to make her own rules. And I think therefore it was really important in her private life that she dated men and stayed with a man who would make her feel in touch with like her soft side and take care of her too. It's definitely a cautionary tale, and it is a warning to all the ladies out there watching this show because of how insane everything got with her, of what happens when you're a high-powered, self-sufficient, independent, smart woman if you settle for less or if you don't choose your partner carefully, because it will ultimately drain you and deplete you of your energy, time, and resources and stress you out. Steve was always playing on Miranda's insecurities about being too masculine, and he knew that was something that really scared her, so he would like press that button a lot, and it was just like really, really fucked up. I always felt bad for her because even before her and Steve had kids, I get that Steve, and whatever, I get that it's hard having kids it's difficult, it does create more strain, but there shouldn't be this much strain in a relationship when one of you doesn't even work much and you literally don't have kids and you only just moved in together, and to already be in this level of strain and conflict in your relationship is such a bad sign, to have this much drama and this lack of peace. And you can really see it when Miranda's the one doing the washing and cleaning and working, and Steve has just moved in and spends most of the time watching TV and lounging around at her apartment. And I felt so bad. The one episode she comes back from the store with all her shopping bags full, and the bag breaks and it spills and it smashes marinara sauce all over the floor, and you can see how completely overwhelmed she is. It's like, especially the fact that this was written by men, it really leaves a sour taste in my mouth, because you can see it coming through this message of humble yourself. Okay, you're not all that, humble yourself. You need a nice guy to make you happy, and like you need him. And it wasn't just Steve himself that really was not good enough for Miranda and added no value or peace to her life. It was his mum too, with dementia, adding all this stress too. And she had to deal with that as well. And it's fine, like, if they're independent from their family, but it felt like Steve was expecting Miranda to be a caretaker for his aging family, which is just not a fair expectation to place on someone. I heard a lot of people saying that now they've rewatched the show, they realized they side with Miranda, but when they were younger and first watching the show at the time, they didn't, because of the way the show framed her as being the bad guy for having boundaries and having standards. So often they would side with her friends and be like, oh yeah, Miranda's so harsh, you know, she's so uptight, and oh, she needs to relax. Or they would side with Steve because of the way that it's framed. And the thing is, Miranda could have had it all, she could have done whatever she wanted, but her own self-doubt and lack of trust in herself was continually getting in the way. And I think a part of the reason why she stayed with Steve, for example, for so long was because he made her feel comfortable. She was insecure, so she didn't want someone better than her or better looking than her. So she kind of subconsciously wanted to date down to feel comfortable. But therefore, I think she really deserved some better friends who would give her honest feedback and tell her she deserved more and push her to get more, because none of them ever would really help her with that. In fact, they actually shamed her when she wanted to leave Steve for cheating on her after they got married, and all the girls were making out that somehow Miranda was the problem for having boundaries and that it's totally normal to cheat and you should at least work it out. So they were part of gaslighting her as well. And it was obvious that Miranda was independent-minded. It makes me sad that she even had to go for that traditional nuclear family structure and get married. Why? Like, why did she have to at all? I think she would have been so much happier just single without children. That's the funny part. She didn't even need to do all that. She wasn't clear enough on what she wanted versus what her friends wanted, and a lot of the time they just want the best influence on each other as well. Like, she moved into a place she hated, that she didn't really like, because Steve was guilt tripping her and making her feel like she should go along with his idea of life, or she was having a kid because, oh, it seems like everybody else wants to do that and so I should do that, and always feeling in a rush. Like in season 2, 3, she was really worried about only having one good ovary, and she was like, oh my gosh, like I need to hurry up. And so in the first date with guys, she was talking about, oh, by the way, I've only got one ovary, and she was freaking out about it. So a lot of the time her decisions were coming from a place of deep anxiety and not feeling good about herself and kind of panicking and rushing and being desperate, which is probably the worst, most frazzled state of mind to be making decisions from, is when you're not calm. But I don't care. I love Miranda. I think she deserves so much better than what she got, and I wish there had been a point where she had a massive turning point and realized that she wanted more for herself and stopped tolerating mediocre behavior that was affecting her life, because I think she is a great friend. She's really funny and I really enjoy all of her scenes. And yeah, I would love to know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know which character or which of the main girls you want me to cover next, and stay tuned and I will see you guys for the next video. Bye guys.